Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I am doing a book haul. I went to the library and got a lot of books, so I'm going to be sharing what I'm going to be reading coming up, and if any of these sound interesting, I will likely be doing a review, so stay tuned. And again, if you have any suggestions or would like to share what you are reading this spring, please let me know in the comment section down below. Now let's talk about the books that I got out of the library and what I'm going to be reading this spring. First up is actually a reread. It is The Truth by Terry Pratchett. I love Terry Pratchett. I've read most of his stuff at this point, and I feel like whenever I'm looking for a book that's going to be consistently good, that I'm going to enjoy, and I know I'm going to have a good time, I just go grab something from the Terry Pratchett section of the library. Again, I believe I read this actually for the first time in high school. I started reading Terry Pratchett probably in late middle school, and I really enjoyed it. So this is just going to be a fun, light reread for me. I might not do a review on it because it is a reread, but I had a great time reading it the first time. I'm sure the second time is also going to be enjoyable. Next up is 4 books off my to-read list. So one of my 2024 goals is to get my to-read list below 100, which currently it stands at over 200. And 200 is kind of my limit. Like, my book list should not be getting over 200 because that's just too much. So I need to get this book list down to at least below 200 and hopefully below 100. So to start us off, I'm going to get 4 books off that list in this next couple weeks. And these are the books that I've selected off that list to read. First is Off to Be the Wizard by Scott Meyer. This is what the cover looks like. This was just a book that seemed interesting. It actually is thicker than I thought it was going to be, which is interesting, but it should just be a fun, it's a time travel book about going back in time, so it should just be a fun sci-fi read, and the cover looks really cool, kind of old school video gamey, so this should be an enjoyable read, and it's going to be off the to-read list, which is really the ultimate goal here. Next up is Arbitrary Lines, How Zoning Broke the American City and How to Fix It by M. Nolan Gray. So I'm really interested in like city design and urban planning, and whenever you discuss any of those topics, zoning usually comes up. So zoning is telling what businesses or who can live, or not who to live, like certain groups of people, but if you have heavy industry, they want to maybe keep that separate from where we're housing people or sending kids to school. I'm not too familiar with it, which is why I got this book to kind of educate myself on this topic. I recently finished an audiobook on parking that was actually really fascinating, so I'm excited to compliment my parking book, which it was more interesting than it sounds. I know it sounds super boring, but I'm interested in complimenting my parking book by this zoning book. I'm realizing I'm not really making my case and I sound really, really boring. I promise I'm not this boring in real life, but I'm gonna read about zoning for fun in my free time. Maybe I am boring in real life, I don't know. But Arbitrary Lines, I'm excited to read. Next up is a murder mystery. I feel like I haven't read a lot of mysteries lately, and I want to because I like them. I haven't read a lot of cozy mysteries in particular. I'm not sure if this one counts as a cozy mystery. It also appears to be a translation from German, and that is The Sunset Years of Agnes Sharp. So this is what the cover looks like. We have some spooky designs, like of course the skull coming out of the chimney. I believe of course this was originally written in German. If it's been translated from German into English, it's by Leonie Swan, and this should be a fun little read. I'm not sure if it's technically a cozy mystery, but it looks like it will be a good mystery nonetheless. The final book from my to-read list, which I have been working through that I want to give a read, is Mathematics for Human Flourishing by Frances Su. This is a bright purple cover, and yeah, this one's been hanging out on my list for a while. I love math books. I think they're always interesting and fun, and I think it's going to be an interesting and enjoyable read. So this is the book that I will be reading for math, Mathematics for Human Flourishing for Frances Su. I am rapidly working my way through all of the math books in my library and library system. So if you have any recommendations that I can request on interlibrary loan, please let me know, because I, again, am running out of the books that I naturally run into at my library in the math section because I've read most of them. Unless I want to start reading like SAT prep books, which I really don't want to. So please let me know if you have any math suggestions. I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel. Not saying that this is a bad book, but I'm running out of titles to read in my current library, so I'm looking for suggestions with regard to math. Next up are 2 books though, or the last 2 books I should say, are ones that were not off my to-read list, but ones that I either wanted to read because they're in a series or ones that I found. The first is from the series I have been reading, The Remarried Empress This is volume 5. I've been loving this series. It was originally a webcomic or a webtoon, and it's now been put into these books. I, for some reason, thought that volume 5 wasn't out yet. It clearly is. I got it. So I'm excited to continue the series. I feel like the art in this series is fantastic. It really is a point that stands out. So I'm excited to read Remarried Empress volume 5 and see what I think about it. Finally, we have A Stroke of the Pen, The Lost Stories by Terry Pratchett. This one is actually a collection of short stories that were rediscovered, written by Pratchett under a pseudonym. And I found this in the news section of my library. For some reason, I thought it was stories that he had already written and they were just being collected in one point. But from reading the inside cover, it appears to be ones that were previously not known or attributed to him because they were written under a pseudonym. So I'm excited to read this. It's quite short, it's under 200 pages, but I think it'll be a fun read. And I really like Terry Pratchett's writing style, so I hope that that comes through in this little short book. This is what I'm going to be reading this spring. I do have a couple outliers that have been out from previous library runs, but this is going to be the bulk, I think, of my spring reading, or at least reading for the next couple weeks. I always take suggestions, so if you have any books that you think I should be reading, please let me know in the comment section down below. I will try to get to them and give them a read. I love receiving your comments and suggestions. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.